Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 120 members present, the House is now in session. Clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 28th, 2021.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Most much considered the reading the journal from the previous day.
So order petitions, memorials, and other papers. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There'll be 120 members present. The House is still in session. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 78. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 81, Southern Maryland Rapid Transit Project funding.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 93 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 81, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 127, Institutions of Higher Education, Use of Criminal History in Admission Modifications.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 88 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 127, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 269, Property Tax Exemption, Disabled Active Duty Service Members, Disabled Veterans, and Surviving Spouses Refund.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 123 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 269, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 300, Special Education Learning Continuity Plan Requirement.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 125 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 300, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 829, State Procurement, Emergency and Expedited Procurements, Revisions and Reporting.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 114 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 829, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 79. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 578, Income Tax Internal Revenue Code Amendments, Decoupling.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? Recognize the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, Ways and Means. There
Yes,
you
ma'am.
are. Can you tell us what this bill does, please?
So as amended, it's identical to the cross-file from the House that we already passed. The provisions decoupling from existing tax provisions have been stricken from the bill, so this will not result in any negative tax action for anybody. What it says is that going forward, just as we decouple from federal actions in the current tax year, we will also automatically decouple from federal actions that are in prior tax years to give the legislature time to weigh in and set state policy on taxation.
Do you mean the type of thing like if you itemize, you can itemize in state even though you're not itemizing on federal, or is it not at that granular of a level?
So the way our law works right now, if there is a change in federal taxation that would result in more than a $5 million revenue impact to the state of Maryland, we automatically decouple for a year to give the legislature time to weigh in and determine if we want to continue decoupling or to recouple with the federal provisions.
Okay. And was there any opposition?
Not on these provisions. The opposition was on the provisions that were struck from the bill.
So now everybody's, like, did Americans for Tax Reform, any of those folks weigh in?
Everybody that's talked to me, I think is fine with it because this is just a clarification of existing state policy.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Recognizing
Chairman,
young lady from Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Floor Leader, a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not talking necessarily about the policy, but I'm talking about the ability for the Comptroller's Office to handle this with our current computer systems. As you know, we've had a terrible time just with unemployment because we're in a different posture with our law of excluding up to the first 100,000, and the feds went to 150. And tax preparers all over the state of Maryland are sitting with shelves and shelves and shelves of tax forms returns from people that collected unemployment because we didn't have a way. When you decouple, we go right off the adjusted gross income of the feds, and we pull it right over to the state return. And our system in the Comptroller's Office is so outdated. It's not, I think, supposed to get updated till 2022 or 23. How are we going to handle this just technology-wise when we don't have the capacity even to handle the unemployment issue?
My understanding is that the computer system is perfectly capable of handling it right now. Again, we already do this for tax changes that are in the current tax year. This just clarifies that applies to previous tax years as well.
And I'm not sure if it's real well known, but I don't really think there's a way for this stuff to be audited right now. We say we do it, but it's sort of the honor system on some cases because we really don't have the capacity technologically to handle some of this. I said, case in point is unemployment, which is just getting fixed right now with the differences in the federal and the state. So I think as we roll these things out to decouple, we need to make sure we can handle it. We can handle the application of it in our systems. So thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Gentleman from Western Maryland to explain his vote in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had actually hit the button earlier. I was hoping to ask a question, but I know we're past that point now.
Gentleman can explain his vote then.
Yes, to explain my no vote, I was hoping to see what the House bill was, but I do see that it's changing things, but it looks like it's already lost, so I'm not even sure of the need for this bill. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Any further debate? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll. Take the call. There being 122 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 578, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 711, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Pilot Program, established.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 132 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 711, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 916, Taxes, Whistleblower Reward Program, and Statute of Limitations for Tax Collections.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman for Anne Arundel.
Thank you. I just wanted to just make sure I understand this bill in the final form. Can someone just explain to me what it does now after the amendments that's in it?
Yes, sir. This is identical to the House version of the bill, which has already passed both chambers and is heading to the governor's desk. It establishes a whistleblower reward program for large-scale fraud in the tax system, identical or similar to the system that exists under the IRS for federal taxation.
And can you remind the body what's the reward for being a whistleblower, percentage-wise?
I believe it's up to 30% of the recovery.
So if I rat out someone, I get up to 30% of what is collected?
Many of the large-scale frauds, tax frauds that we see only come to light because of whistleblowers, so this is an incentive for whistleblowers, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Talbot in the annex.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the floor leader. I'm reading the bill, and I remember the conversation we were having about the sworn affidavit. So the whistleblower can provide information to the comptroller in a sworn affidavit. If the affidavit is sworn, what happens if the person who's making the whistleblower complaint does it in bad faith, or it's not correct?
They are liable for perjury.
And so what's the penalty for perjury in this? I mean, I'm a layman. I don't.
I'm looking at the chairman of Judiciary. How about this? Why don't I special order the bill so I can answer your questions? Why don't you give me a call on the floor?
Sure.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to special order this bill to the appropriate time.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered to the appropriate time later on this evening. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 927, Institutions of Higher Education, Prohibition Against Incentive Payments, Foreign Student Exemption.
Is on third reading and final passage.
Madam Speaker.
Is there any debate?
I have some
Gentleman
questions
from
for the sponsor, Madam Speaker. Can I special order this at the appropriate time?
Committee Chair. Please.
Let's do it for about a half an hour at most.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Question
Thank
for
you,
the
Madam
House
Speaker.
of Special Order SB 927 to the appropriate time within 30 minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Bill has been special ordered. Concurrence calendar number 36. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 1007, Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard and Geothermal Heating and Cooling Systems, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would move to concur with the Senate amendment. It postpones implementation of the bill by 6 months and makes a corresponding change to the RPS percentages for the out years.
Question for the House is concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1007 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 104 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1007, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1152, Howard County Alcoholic Beverages, Class B beer, wine, and liquor license off-premises consumption.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would move to concur with the Senate amendments. The Senate amendments authorize the Board of License Commissioners of Howard County to limit the quantity of alcohol beverages sold in a single transaction for off-premises consumption. This is in line with House Bill 12.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1152 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1152, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 37. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 16, Correctional Services, Immigrant Detention, Prohibition, Dignity Not Detention Act, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We're going to move to concur in the Senate amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical, and amendment number 2 adds a provisions prohibiting a law enforcement agent from performing certain immigration-related actions in the course of regular police functions with specified exceptions. So again, we're going to move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Are you standing up to ask something, or what? What are you doing? Okay, well, I couldn't tell.
Just waiting.
All right. Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Floor Leader, appreciate your work on this. I wanted to ask you, though, about the new amendment that has just come in. I understand from earlier discussions that it exempts existing 287G programs like the one in Frederick from continuing. But two quick questions. First of all, if we were to pause our 287G contract, would we be able to then restart that if we had an influx of international crime coming into our community?
So let me clarify what exactly we're doing here. The bill, as we passed it, would have phased out 3 for-profit ICE immigrant detention centers in Maryland. We're actually down to 2 now because Howard County has since phased out its facility. So the bill would phase out 2 ICE detention centers in Maryland, in Frederick and Worcester County. The Senate added a provision that basically says police should not be going around asking people for their papers and checking on their status unless it is part of a criminal investigation where that's relevant. And there's, again, an existing exception in the ICE detention bill that clarifies 287G won't be impacted by this. So whether or not Frederick pauses or restarts, I don't think any of that should have any bearing on this bill.
So just to clarify, if we were to elect a different sheriff and they discontinued the memo with the Department of Homeland Security for a term, and then noticed that we had an uptick of violence and they wanted to restart that cooperative program, would Frederick be prohibited under this bill from doing that?
No. Again, the primary impact of the bill you're going to see in the world is to shut 2 ICE detention facilities. The rest of it that was added by the Senate is actually existing law. And it's supposed to be the case that our police are not going around asking for this. And actually, part of the reason we had to put this clarification in is Frederick has now had to settle out at least 2 lawsuits where it paid hundreds of thousands of dollars because it was precisely asking people for their status when they were just doing things like sitting there eating lunch. So again, as long as the officers in Frederick are abiding by that provision of law, they ought to have no problems.
Well, just to clarify the record, that's one point of view on how that went down. But as someone who has toured the facility and seen the proper procedures that are followed every single day, they don't actually ask those questions. And just to clarify that it actually is a very positive legal approach that I want to get to when I get to the bill. But I did have one more quick question on the amendment that was just added. It says that during the performance of regular police functions, the police officers may not ask these questions or participate in the process of inquiring about citizenship. So now, as it stands, they don't do that anyway. Out on the beat, someone's picked up for a crime they've brought in, and as part of that process, as you know, with the Geneva Accords, they have to be provided an opportunity, if they are not a U.S. citizen, to be given the right to contact their embassy. And you informed me earlier that that is protected in this bill. Is that true?
That's correct. And again, they wouldn't have to provide information. Whether they wanted to exercise that consular right is voluntarily disclosed to them. But I will tell you, if you ever look at the cases in that, police departments in the United States are routinely violating the Vienna Convention and not providing foreign citizens access to consular rights.
Well, that's not our sheriff and that's not our county. I just want everybody to know that we actually had 3 in the last 2 years, 3 different foreign nationals that were believing they were not U.S. citizens, and we actually my sheriff determined that they were U.S. citizens, and they gave them that positive information. And then for those that were not, they have exercised the opportunity many times to contact the consular.
And Howard has accidentally jailed citizens too.
So it wasn't accidental. They were picked up on other reasons, lawful reasons. But going to my point, my question here, none of the officers locally in Frederick actually perform any of the ICE functions. In other words, the Department of Homeland Security has professionals that come in and they train and they provide equipment and they provide oversight to the process. And the local police, we don't have anyone full-time designated to this work. So my question would be, if an officer is simply merely cooperating under the memorandum of agreement with the ICE official, with the ICE agent, is that prohibited under this bill?
No. And again, the primary purpose of this bill is not to impact the types of agreements you're talking about. It is that we have had operating in Maryland for-profit immigration detention centers. Basically what's been going on, as I've pointed out in the past, is that Frederick, Howard, and Worcester have been Airbnb-ing spare prison cells to ICE to make a little bit of side cash as a side hustle and bring in revenue for their counties. That's what this bill is ending, this for-profit immigration jails. We've had an ugly period in this country with this. I think it's time to turn the page.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. Madam Speaker, I would like to speak on the bill.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the House of Delegates, the 287 program, under this bill as proposed, if it's limited only to lodging detainers on individuals charged with Title 14-101 offenses, then the following charges would be ineligible for Homeland Security detainers. Essentially, anyone charged with the following crimes could be released back into the community instead of being placed into immigration proceedings after they have adjudicated their local charges. For instance, any weapon offenses besides use of a handgun in a violent crime or felony, ex-possession of a handgun, assault weapons charges, explosives, etc., domestic assault, drug offenses, ex-possession with intent to deliver, child abuse in the 2nd degree, sex offense in the 3rd degree, not listed, felony, no burglary offenses listed at all, human trafficking offenses, commercial sex acts, involuntary servitude, assault on a police officer, felony charge, No child pornography charges of any type. Exploitation or molestation of a minor, stalking, violation of protection orders, harassment, sexual abuse of a minor only covers victims under 13 years of age, theft, larceny charges, counterfeiting fraud charges, embezzlement, forgery, identity theft, intimidation of witness charges, coercion, extortion, threat group, gang charges, terrorist acts, hate crimes, arson, and other property crimes. So in the opinion of our local police and sheriff, this is a dangerous bill as it stands because it will endanger the very communities that the intent of the bill is to protect, and that stands to harm women and children, as we just heard in these list of potential charges. And I just want to list a couple points here for the body about the bill and why this will harm our communities. There is prosecutorial discretion currently. This bill will prevent that. Currently, prosecutorial discretion is allowed for DACA, for serious medical conditions, sole family providers, and nursing mothers. In our county, I only have the data up through 2019, but there's been well over 200 discretionary releases because of these different issues. The detainer approvals up through 2019, which is the last data I have, is almost 1,000 were with the Frederick Police Department, not the Sheriff's Department. Another 373 were with our Sheriff's Department, 202 were with the Maryland State Police, and 107 were other police departments. The total was 1,673 up through 2019. Now, why is that important? Because let me read off to you the list of charges that those 1,600 and almost 1,700 individuals up through 2019 were picked up for. 89 detainers were lodged against individuals who were arrested for domestic violence. That's where the community called in, pleading for help, saying, please come get this person. This person is beating me. I mean, one of the crimes that was indicated was actually some of these crimes are very brutal domestic violence issues. And the last thing they want is for the individual to be released back into the community. Additionally, many of the unaccompanied juveniles that have been caught in Frederick have been convicted of or charged with felonies, crimes of violence, and were validated gang members. For instance, 74 were validated gang members, 32 were suspected gang members. Listen to this, 21 were specialized in combat training and sniper training, including military training, knife fighting, MMA, and guerrilla warfare. Those are the kind of individuals that would be released if this bill were to pass. Additionally, there have been sex offenders, predators, and crimes of violence and drug traffickers, as the list indicated. This, ladies and gentlemen, this bill will strip away the opportunity for Maryland to make its own local determination to protect its communities. I don't think any of us want anyone in our community to be harmed, and that's, I know the good intent of the bill, as the good delegate has mentioned, but this goes too far. This goes into binding the hands of local voters into determining their own safety within the confines of the law and federal law, and frankly, as a matter of federal law, it goes way too far into confining the interaction between federal law enforcement and local law enforcement. So for those reasons, I'll be voting red.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I have no idea what you just heard there. A long, long list of crimes. That's what you heard. This is the nonsense we've been listening to for years. I'm going to make this plain as day one more time. A green vote says that Maryland does not balance budgets on family separation. That long list of crimes you just heard is a distraction. Here are the facts. A majority of those detained in these ICE detention facilities are not criminals. Certainly not in the way you and I use the word criminal. The number one cited offense for these residents is entering the country. Now, you and I can argue and disagree or agree on how one should do that. But these are not criminals, and certainly not with respect to the list of crimes that the delegate has been listing. So again, this is a huge distraction. The bill is ending making our neighbors a commodity to be sold off to ICE as a side hustle. Again, Airbnb-ing private prison cells. The majority of the people picked up in these extra cells are from Montgomery, Prince George's, and the Baltimore region. It is our neighbors. Please, it's getting late. This has been one of the longest sessions I've ever endured, and they're all supposed to be 90 days. This is the truth. You know it. It's been the longest year. It's been the longest 4 years. And this is finally our opportunity to turn a corner on this ugly, sordid, unfortunate repeat history that we've seen in the past scapegoating immigrants. Please put a green vote up on the board.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Somerset in the annex.
Madam Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. This bill is about disgusting, to be honest with you. We have Worcester County that I represent that houses probably the largest city during the 3 months during the summer and has to have capacity to accommodate people that don't do right. And they've been able to accommodate that by providing facilities to take care of immigrants that have not done right. And they've provided safe, healthy facilities for the people. And I find this bill horrendous that we would not do that. We see what's going on in Arkansas, or Arkansas is not the right answer, Texas, Arizona, and we have concerns about our immigration, and we have facilities here that are doing a fine job providing things and keeping our public safe. I think this is a horrendous bill that should be voted down, and it will cost Worcester County a considerable amount of revenue that it's been able to provide services for the federal government and for the citizens of Maryland. So, thank you.
Gentlelady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really hope that this body never has to ever experience those, what did our colleague from Montgomery County, distractions, those violent crimes that he labeled as distractions. I hope nobody in here has one of their family members experience such atrocious distractions ever in their lives.
Gentleman from Carroll in the annex. On the bill.
On the bill, Madam Speaker, I have to say I had emergency root canal this morning, and that was more pleasant than many of the bills I've seen this session, I got to tell you. So when the governor talks about how great this session was, I'm wondering what session he was watching. You know, when we took office, we take a solemn oath to uphold the law. Similarly, our much beleaguered law enforcement personnel take an oath to uphold the law. And that means all the law, including federal immigration law. I guess unless you are the Baltimore City State's attorney, when you take an oath to uphold the law, you can't pick and choose which laws you like. And I know that immigration is a hot topic for some of you folks, people, but my advice to all you folks who believe in open borders, immigration laws on the books, then get yourselves elected to Congress, God forbid, and change federal law. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. All I want to say is this. My very good friend, two of them, my very good friend from Tacoma Park and my very good friend from Montgomery County, it's the majority leader, he used a word the other day called comity, C-O-M-I-T-Y. And what comity means is that I don't question and impugn you, and you don't question and impugn me. We come to this floor on principle, and we disagree. The gentleman from Frederick disagrees about this body's perspective on the enforcement of federal immigration law. His position is not ugly, it is not sordid, it is not laughable. He did the best that he could to articulate his views before the people of this House and of this state. And I know that my friend from Tacoma Park did not mean to impugn him. I know he didn't, because I know him to be a good man and a good person and a person of passion. But all I would suggest to you is that we're all going to be here together for only a little bit more tonight, but we're certainly, most of us are going to be here together next year and maybe for many more years. And if we want to have comedy, then let's talk about principle and let's not impugn each other because partisan differences. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
No, Madam Speaker, no. No. The people that have been impugned are my constituents, your neighbors, and the immigrants that are being called terrorists and criminals. I said it again. The number one offense was entering the country. And at every floor debate, and you have made me get up here and debate this so many times over the years, every single time you invoke 9/11. In the last one, you said the immigrants were bringing coronavirus.
Madam Speaker, point of order. That's enough. We have a disagreement over policy. No one's talking about terrorists and 9/11. We're talking about policy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You were all here. Vote the right way on this. It's a green vote. End this nonsense.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Western Maryland in the annex.
Good evening, Madam Speaker and body. It's my pleasure to be able to talk a little bit about this important bill tonight. You know, it's interesting. We look at this whole concept, and some of us in this body would like to defund ICE. They don't believe in the legal term, illegal aliens, and yet that is a legal term that's used. It was talked about at the Frederick Police Department, how people who are there are only there because they're illegal aliens. There's no other reason why they were there. Well, I have toured that facility as well, and I'm very thankful for the sheriff who's there and is very careful that only people who are in that jail are those who have committed crimes. If they haven't committed a crime, they are not in the jail. My good friend from Frederick talked about different types of cases that under this bill would no longer allow these folks to be put in jail. And that list was very long, and it was very concerning. People who have committed those types of crimes need to be in jail, and if they're illegal aliens, they need to be identified, and they need to be turned over to ICE. It's interesting that I see a lot of the discussion coming from Montgomery County. And it's interesting, I'm in Washington County, and I see a gap happen. There's a lot of crime in Montgomery County from illegal aliens. It kind of gets blocked in Frederick, partly I think because of the policies that they have there, and it's not happening much in Washington County at all. But in Montgomery County, you don't have to go very far back to see record numbers of rapes from illegal aliens, murders, child molestation, and gang activity. These are the types of things that we need to be able to have them go into detention, and we need to cooperate with ICE. And this bill, unfortunately, limits that cooperation. I urge the body to vote no. Thank you.
Gentleman from Howard County.
Thank
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Floor Leader, quick question for you. You've asked multiple times, or you've stated multiple times about Airbnb for people here not legally. Where would these individuals be housed if they weren't housed in, say, a county like Howard County that has currently this agreement? Would it be a federal facility?
So it's a good question. They would end up in different places. If they were, a lot of the folks would just be sent home with ankle bracelet or something like that, some sort of non-incarceration form of monitoring. If in fact you had someone who did fit in this criminal category, as has been alleged, they would probably end up in a facility in Pennsylvania or Virginia. And again, as I've said, it's unclear to me what the public policy interest is in us and having those actual violent criminals closer to home. The issue is what's happening with all of the non-criminals. And since the issue of Howard County has come up, let me just bring up a very interesting example here. We have a live example that tells us what happens when you restrict who enters these facilities. Howard County had about 100 people that they were locking up, over 100 people they were locking up in their ICE facility for pay. And because of protests, they had a policy change. And they decided, okay, we're only going to take violent criminals now. And the population dropped to 8. I don't think they were making that much money once they actually filtered it for only violent criminals. So you got to wonder, who were the other 92 people? Clearly, they were not the violent criminals that Howard County was alleging the whole time it had. And what happened? They ended their program early.
Mr. Floor Leader, how many federal facilities does ICE have in the state of Maryland, if you know?
Federal facilities, does ICE have? It's got these, well, it had 3. I guess it's got 3 currently. There's a field office in Baltimore, and then there's some nonprofits it contracts with.
So I apologize. I think what I'm asking is a different question. Are there federal facilities that do not contract with a local facility? I understand the one that you're talking about, like Howard County, that is in cooperation, but are there federal facilities?
Yes, ICE has opened its own, it has its own offices, and again, it has ones that it has opened in concert with counties.
Correct. And so the Howard County specific facility, does that house other criminals there or just these ICE detainees?
I believe that one was a mixed facility.
I believe you're correct on that. So at this point, if we have a facility that is partially filled with criminals from Howard County or the surrounding areas, and Howard County is using those empty bed spaces, as you quoted, Airbnb, why would we want to have that facility not filled and cost the taxpayers in Howard County surrounding areas more money by these violent criminals, even the 8?
Again, it goes back to the central tenet I pointed out, that a green vote says Maryland does not balance budgets on family separation. The existence of these ICE detention facilities, and ICE has tried to expand them when states have tried to shut them down, it tends to lead to more enforcement activities. Again, enforcement against people who are by and large not criminals. And so if you believe that family separation is not a good thing and that it shouldn't happen to non-criminals, then certainly you ought to oppose a new ICE detention facility being created in your community, because that's how it's going to be used.
Thank you, Mr. Floor Leader. So one more quick question. So if we shut down the Howard County facility and these members possibly could be detained in Virginia or Pennsylvania, isn't that a further separation of the family at this point so that they cannot visit their family members if they are detained at this point?
Again, you're going to have to choose your public policy poison here. But if you have to pick who we're trying to preserve here, for me, it is the non-criminal members of our community who are being shipped off thanks to the presence of these ICE detention facilities. Again, I think it's just a hard argument to make that they're an amenity, a positive aspect for people to have near them if this is how they're being used.
Thank you, Floor Leader. On the bill, Madam Speaker, I think this is a point more of efficiency, especially in Howard County. We have a facility that houses a lot of criminals, and Howard County took it upon themselves, like you mentioned, to actually restrict just the most violent criminals there. And I think just as an efficiency aspect, why would we not want to house people and get some money back for the taxpayers of Howard County? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Gentlelady from Hartford in the annex.
Madam Speaker. I just wanted to kind of make a comment for some things I've heard. The program, the 287 program that I know from the two counties that I represent, we wouldn't even know that these folks were not in the country and this state illegal if they would have not committed a crime. So they were arrested for a certain crime. So that's why they're incarcerated, not because they are actually here illegally. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Young lady from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll just address that briefly. That's actually not true. Many of these individuals, they come here after crossing the border, and they do regular check-ins with ICE. So I just want to correct that misstatement initially. But I also wanted to just rise and encourage the body to vote green on this bill on behalf of my constituents. I represent an incredibly diverse district, very proud to represent District 46 with my teammates. And many of our neighborhoods in District 46 have really been saved by immigration. Our schools are full now because of immigrants who have chosen to seek a better life for their families. And just a few years ago, a child in a class just older than my son, his father walked him to school at Hampstead Hill Academy, where my son goes, our local public school, great school in Baltimore City. And he kissed his son goodbye, and then he walked home. But he didn't make it home, this dad, because ICE picked him up right after he dropped off his child at school. And that was devastating for the family. He was the breadwinner for the family. He hadn't committed a crime other than coming in and seeking a better life for his family. That has happened repeatedly to families at the school where I send my child. Just recently, the principal from the school came to Annapolis to lobby on this bill because he has seen the devastation that family separation has caused. Family separation driven by profit-seeking incentives, these ICE facilities in our state. I'm sorry if some local governments might make fewer bucks, but this is not how we should be making money. Off the backs of hardworking people who for the last year have been essential workers, who we have relied on through COVID, despite the fact that they didn't get a cent from the federal government in relief aid. So I just ask the body to do the right thing tonight, to make Maryland a more humane place, to make Maryland one that appreciates families no matter where they come from, and cast a green vote on behalf of HB 16.
Young lady from Prince George's in the Annex and also the Vice Chair of Health and Government Operations.
Madam Speaker, I move the previous question.
The question is a previous question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Roll call.
On the previous question, you want a roll call? Really? So on HB 16 is on third reading and final passage.
On the bill.
Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman St. Mary is to explain his vote. Anyone's getting up, you're going to explain your vote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my vote and why I'm red on this, we have a crisis on our border right now because of the policies of this president, of the federal government. It is a admitted disaster. You have children in cages that the Obama administration built. It might hurt your feelings, but it's true. Right now, there was a study based on NBC News had. Interesting part in this article. Talked about migrants, some with COVID, and they kept naming their destination spots. Their 3 top destination spots: New Jersey, North Carolina, and Maryland. Why? We want to have a public policy debate? I agree with the floor leader. This has been a long session. We've raised taxes on our own citizens while we're mailing checks to people here illegally. That's not right. That's not why we were sent to Annapolis. That's not why I was sent to Annapolis. And I'm happy to vote red on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentlemen, Ocean City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my vote, this is a big deal to me as I represent Worcester County. We have, it's about a $5 million issue for our county. Not that we use it to balance our budget, but it's that we've hired people to actually have jobs, full-time jobs that are so precious to the county to house these folks that are going to be housed in other states if we don't do it here in the county. And because it's so important, I had several conversations with the floor leader, and in one of the conversations we discussed the reputation of the facility at Worcester County. And it was agreed that the facility in Worcester County is much better than where these inmates are going to go to if Worcester County were closed. So why are we here if we're so concerned about the welfare of these folks and folks that have committed serious crimes? If we're truly committed to giving them the best conditions while they're incarcerated, why are we pushing to close the facility in Worcester County that has a great reputation and it fulfills a need? This just doesn't make sense to me. For that reason, I have a red vote. Thank you.
The gentleman from Montgomery County, Indiana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my vote, proud to represent District 39 that has a vibrant and growing immigrant community, and we're sending a clear message to the immigrant community tonight across our state that our state cares, that the General Assembly cares, and we will not continue to support practices employed really by ICE, an agency that uses, in my opinion, Gestapo tactics to create fear within communities. And we are sending a clear message that that is not okay. Thank you.
Point of order. I was told last week that a point of order.
He is explaining his vote.
Personal privilege. I was told last week that that meant more than what was actually happened. He's saying using Gestapo tactics.
I heard that on the floor too.
Hey, well, that doesn't bring to the point. Nothing should be compared to the Nazi regime. We discussed that last week. And that terminology shouldn't be used on the floor. Thank you.
What was said earlier to this gentleman that was floor leader? Gentlemen, will you finish your comments? For Montgomery, will you finish your comments? Done.
Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my vote, there's a huge difference between illegal immigration and immigration. This country is built on immigration. And it's very important that people come here legally. Illegal immigration leads to sex trafficking, child abuse, atrocities that nobody in here wants to admit to. All you got to do is open your eyes and talk to somebody on the border. It is horrible what happens to these young girls and these women. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's true. Honest fact. Nobody can debate that. You can debate it. Do you want the mic? Take the mic. Argue with me that it doesn't happen. It does. It's horrible. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker.
Explaining your vote.
I'm explaining my vote. It is horrible what happens to some of these people coming across the border. Don't say that I'm not passionate love. I'm defending them.
But you don't have to raise your voice. Some people have very sensitive ears. And
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker.
Please lower your voice.
Madam Speaker, when I'm explaining my vote and I got somebody to my left that wants to keep talking, I'm sorry. It's got nothing to do with you. You know I have the ultimate respect for you and your position. I am just trying to defend people that don't want to be defended. And there's a huge difference between people that come here legally and illegally. And I will defend anybody that's trying to build a better life for their family. But sometimes what we think is right destroys families, and I'm trying to stop it. That's all I'm trying to say, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Western Maryland and the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and body. Just to explain my no vote.
Yes.
A lot that's been said, I agree with. It's interesting. We're talking about the profit seeking. We need to get rid of profit seeking. Well, the sheriff that I know in Frederick, he's not doing it for profit seeking. He's doing it because it's the right thing to do. He's doing it to protect his community and to try and protect the people. We need to empower police and allow them to do their job. And that includes ICE, to be able to help them do their job. We appreciate immigration. That is what has built our country. We're built on immigration. But if we're going to be a country of laws, we have to enforce the laws that we have. And the federal laws we have right now does not allow for illegal immigration. It's hurtful to our communities and hurtful to our country. We do want families to be together, but not at the cost of taking a criminal who should be off of the streets, someone who's child molesting, or like that list from my friend from Frederick listed out. We need to be able to have those people behind bars to protect the community. So in light of all this, I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The message is clear. The message is, if you do us harm, regardless of where you come from, you will go to jail and you will be responsible for it. As a proud immigrant, I stand here against this bill because I believe this bill makes us less safe. In my own county, 180 people were screened. 36 of them had a detainer. 36 were here for violent crimes that they've committed. We hear this every year, all day long in the session, that if we can save one life, it's worth it. And with this bill, our communities will be less safe than what we intend to be. So I am proudly here, standing up here to vote red against this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to rise today to explain my vote, and I wanted to start by saying it's an unfair mischaracterization that we've heard tonight that people that disagree with these policies impugn immigrants. I stand here tonight and I'm saying it's an important part of American culture. Immigration is. We want immigrants. We need immigrants. We love immigrants. People here who are here in violation of federal law, that is not immigration. And it's right and it's fair to say that. I appreciate the stories we hear from communities around the state, but I would urge the body to consider, look back a few years. We had people from Montgomery County come to Judiciary to say to us that the organized crime in some of these groups like MS-13 is so bad and so violent in their schools and their communities that we had to pass specialized legislation just to get these families to communicate with law enforcement about the gang activity. I appreciate the stories from the gentlelady from District 46, but I have a story about my area as well. Someone was put on a public bus in District 46, and they were led to Turner Station, where they were stabbed to death by a person that was here illegally. And it is, as we hear these stories about people who are detained and taken from their families, I think we should recognize that it's very, very hard for law enforcement to execute perfectly when we're creating these zones of lawlessness. And that's why I'm voting against this bill today, Madam Speaker.
The other gentleman from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just want to explain my vote as well. I've been to the border. I've done ride-alongs with the Border Patrol. I was fortunate to see the great job that they do and the unfortunate situation that actually takes place there. And I agree with a lot of the comments that have been said earlier, especially, one that was briefly mentioned but not really into detail, is just how much the legal immigrant community despises bills just like this. The legal immigrant community wants nothing to do with illegal immigration because they went through it in our country. To touch on some of the comments made in support of this bill, our country has the most generous immigration laws and allows the most legal immigration, I think, than any country in the world. So this is just another bill. It does nothing to improve our public safety. It actually hinders ICE's ability to accomplish its mandated mission, which is to remove illegal immigrants from our community and our neighborhoods, because we do not know who these people are. We're not sitting here and saying that each and every one of them are a threat to our society, but as I've mentioned before, there are legal ways to come here, and they do not follow them. And really was shocking to hear downplayed the significant criminal element of illegal immigration in this country and specifically in this state. And we've had stories in Baltimore County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, you name it. And the fact is that illegal immigrants, like I mentioned before, they're the most outspoken group that I've come across when I've been to different testimonies on this, when Baltimore County actually had a bill that dealt with this topic. And there was the Asian American community that came out very strong against policies just like this. So thank you. I'll be voting no.
Clerk will take the call. There being 86 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 16 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 39, the clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 1187, Juvenile Law, Juvenile Justice Reform, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move to concur with the Senate amendments. It continues the Juvenile Justice Reform Council. It provides some funding for the ROCA program. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1187 is on third reading and final
Madam
passage.
Speaker.
Round faster. Yes.
Thank you. I thought I saw you looking at the board. I was hoping to be recognized.
I'm recognizing you
Okay,
now.
thank you so much. Will this floor leader rise and just tell us what this bill does now, please?
It continues the Juvenile Justice Reform Council and provides $2 million for ROCA, and that's it.
Okay.
It used to do a lot more.
I'm sorry?
It used to do a lot more, but it doesn't anymore.
Okay. And no opposition to this?
I don't think there's any opposition to the task force continuing its work.
Thank you.
Any other debate? House Bill 1187 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1187, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 44, the clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 1324, Tobacco Tax and Sales and Use Tax, Out-of-State Sales of Premium Cigars and Pipe Tobacco and Tobacco Smoking Devices, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move to concur with the Senate amendments. The Senate amendments make tobacco pipes subject to a 12% sales tax and retain the existing 53% excise tax on other tobacco smoking devices. Move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1324 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 116 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1324, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 42, the clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendment.
House Bill 1248, Public Safety Police Officer Data Collection and Reporting, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move to concur with the Senate amendments. The Senate amendments are largely technical.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1248 is on third reading and final passage. Gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What is the new fiscal note on this? Or is it the same?
I don't believe that there is a fiscal note necessarily with this. This requires This requires the gathering of data regarding settlements that police departments enter into as part of police misconduct cases.
Okay,
and
thank
it
you.
requires posting that. I don't think there's a fiscal note here.
Thank you.
House Bill 1248 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 114 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1248, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 40, the clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 281, Local Government, Humane Society, and Animal Control Officers, Education and Training Requirements, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We move to concur in the Senate amendments. The amendments conform the bill to the Senate cross-file, which passed the House on third reader by a vote of 138 to 0. The amendments are necessary to clarify that the provisions of the bill apply to all counties, including Baltimore City, and municipalities, and make technical changes. Move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 281 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 281, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 43, the clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 1186, Office of the Attorney General, Firearm Crime, Injuries, Fatalities, and Crime Firearms Study Extension, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Move to concur with the Senate amendments. The Senate amendments would include information regarding red flag orders and red flag orders being issued by county. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1186 is on third reading and final passage. Which one? Oh, sorry. The gentleman from Anne Arundel in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a quick question for the committee chair, if I could.
Sure.
So in the fiscal note, it talked about $200,000 for the report.
Yes, that's continuing costs for the report. We passed this last year. They were unable to complete their work because of COVID, so now we're going into another year. This extends it out one more year.
Okay, but the report was $513,000?
The report was, I think that's correct, 513,000.
So why the difference?
I believe that the money is already there. I believe that the money also is already budgeted. So I'm not sure what the discrepancy is in the fiscal note.
Can I hold this till the end of the calendar so I can get?
This is the end of the calendar.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because it's a $300,000 difference. The company, I can't think of the name, Westlake or something like that, I believe quoted the state $513,000. We budgeted $200,000 for the state, leaving about a $300,000 shortfall. I'd like to get to the bottom of that.
I think that this is ready to go, and I'd resist a request for a special order.
House Bill 1186 is on third
Madam
reading
Speaker.
and final passage. Gentleman from Baltimore County.
Just a quick question. Does the bill do anything on, I guess, suggesting how to stop some of these firearm crimes, or how to, I guess, how you go about punishing people for these crimes?
The study looked at a range of different things, and the idea is to look at longitudinally from the beginning, from when a crime was first investigated, looking at the information that comes from when that crime was first investigated, and then making its way through the entire criminal justice process to look and see where cases aren't being prosecuted, where they are being prosecuted, where they are being charged, where they're not being charged. So trying to get a look at the entire kind of landscape of all of the individual gun crimes that occur across the state, or violent gun crimes that occur across the state. So
Okay.
the idea is it's going to give us more information about where the gaps are.
And it was in 2020 when it started?
We
Or
passed it last year,
Yeah.
and now it would extend it a year. It's looking at different chunks of time.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Floor Leader, over the interim, I asked the Office of the Attorney General for information on this study, and I was a little surprised to receive no response. And I'm just curious, do you have any knowledge that the organization that was doing this study just failed to do their duties? I see that under the amendment from the Senate, it looks like we're transferring this responsibility to some entity within the state of Maryland, that other than if it is Westlaw, I'm not sure, but it looks like we may be handing this over to what I suspect might be Johns Hopkins.
So Johns Hopkins was asking for data from the study specifically with regard to red flag orders that were issued, and that's what the amendment was seeking to do. So that goes there. They've already contracted with the company who was doing the overall study, and that work continued, but again, it was delayed because of the pandemic.
And have they provided any information on the work that they've completed so far, or they've just asked for an extension?
They have not yet done that. They've asked for an
Okay.
extension.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Talbot and the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Floor Leader, a quick question. You may have already answered it, but these emergency protective orders, is there data collection for that?
That would seek to be included in this study. I believe that counties keep track of how many of the ERPOs that are issued in each county.
Shouldn't those be confidential?
Individually, yes, but cumulatively, I think that's what the information has, is the cumulative information is what's available, and that's what I would believe that would fit in this picture as well.
Last quick question. Why would it matter whether it's individual or collective? I thought that would be the...
Well, cumulatively, that's the information that I think people are trying to find out with regard to the ERPOs. You do have to be careful that you're not identifying specific people because they have HIPAA rights that could potentially be triggered in that case.
HIPAA rights, okay. Thank you.
House Bill 1186 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 94 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1186, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 135 members present, the House is still in session. Calendar of third reading Senate bills number 76. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 319, Clean Energy Loan Program Remediation and Resiliency.
It's on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 106 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 319, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 396, Baltimore City Alcoholic Beverages Licenses, Hours of Sale.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 135 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 396, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 446, Department of the Environment, Supplemental Environmental Projects Database.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 446, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 80. Clerk will read the bill. First bill.
Senate Bill 563, Local Health Departments Funding.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? The gentleman from Talbot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've got an amendment at the desk. And the amendment has a number, Madam Speaker.
Yes, please read it.
And the number, come on, this son of a gun. No, it's only on the computer and the daggone thing isn't working. Yeah. This. Oh, goodness gracious. Sorry, guys. So sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. It's amendment number 183321/1.
Amendment number 1.
Thank you, and I apologize for the delay. We were doing this electronically, and I had a glitch. This amendment is identical to a bill, HB 1206. The amendment to this bill would simply direct all of our health departments to notify any business entity that is the subject of an anonymous COVID-related tip. Now, the notice requirement is very simple. It doesn't require details. It doesn't require specifics. It simply lets the business know that someone thinks that they're not doing their job right. Currently, what's happening in practice in many of our jurisdictions is that these tips are collected. The information is not shared. The problems that are occurring or alleged problems that are occurring are not being addressed. And the health department shows up and they, and many times, take drastic measures on small businesses. Now, small businesses have had a really difficult time. I think the health departments have had a really difficult time. This is a common sense next step in the way we do regulation for small businesses. We had a hearing on this bill. It wasn't voted on in HGO. There was several businesses testified in support. There was an individual from Carroll County Health Department who testified in opposition. He was questioned during the hearing about the level of detail in the notice that's required by the bill, and we learned during his testimony that he hadn't even read the bill, but he was opposed to the bill. This is common sense. We owe it to our health departments to help them, and we owe it to our small businesses that are doing the right thing and trying to comply and provide a safe, productive environment for their employees and for their customers. You know, it's been stated that bars and restaurants were closed because they were the source of COVID transmissions. I heard that in the last week or so. And that is not verified, maybe with a few instances with bars that completely disregarded the rules and had parking lot parties and acted a fool. Show me an instance where there's a restaurant where there's been a COVID outbreak, or a bar that's operated properly, possibly in the bar area, but in the restaurant area. And throughout this past year, bars and restaurants have been tarred and feathered as being dangerous places. okay? Dangerous places. But the drugstores, the hardware stores, the grocery stores, the disparity is just blatant. And frankly, for many of these small businesses, this also goes for jewelry stores that were shut down. It goes for all sorts of other stores. I'm using bars and restaurants because that came up a couple days ago. I didn't want to address it, but those who operate restaurants will tell you that they're safe and they can operate safely. Beside that, for this amendment has nothing to do with the argument. It has to do with a logical next step in how we're going to move forward. The restrictions aren't going away after we get done tonight. They're businesses that are trying to survive. Okay, they're trying to survive all kinds of jeopardy. This will help health departments not have to go out and harass people. They don't have to go in boats. They don't have to do sneak attacks. Nothing like that. Just make a phone call. 99.9% of the time, if there's a problem, the business doesn't want to be shut down. It'll fix the problem right away. And who wants a business to stay open until the health department comes if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing? The amendment makes perfect sense. I urge the body to support it. It will actually reduce the workload for the health departments, even though the testimony said they wouldn't. A phone call is much easier than making an on-site visit, writing pages of documentation, and then going through the process of executing some sort of formal action. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
On the amendment, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Roll call.
Roll call.
Madam Speaker.
What do we get?
Clerk will take the call. Amendment fails.
Madam Speaker.
Harford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And because this is hopefully the last time I speak this session, I just want to thank you and your staff for your leadership in this very difficult session. It's made this go a lot smoother, and I'm very, very grateful. On the bill, and one, I definitely appreciate the sponsor's last name and first initial. We get a lot of the same emails throughout the year. It's been a lot of fun. And we vote the same way, it seems like, yeah. So I had a question for the floor leader on the bill.
Who's the floor leader? I don't know who the floor leader is.
Yes, I'm in the annex.
I don't know who that is. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know who it was. Gentleman from Montgomery in the annex.
Hello, sir. Good evening. My question for you is because this bill, I was looking at the history of the bill, and it looked like the House version didn't advance, and we've been working off the Senate cross file. Just because I haven't had a chance to hear the bill, could you very briefly just explain what the bill does?
Sure, happily. This bill is designed to set forward a process by which we will enhance funding for our local health departments for after, with the amendment, 2 years from now when federal funding runs out, to make sure that they don't fall off a cliff financially, and we can continue supporting them so they can continue supporting our constituents.
That's very admirable. What is the physical note for this bill?
Well, right now the health departments in current formula make a little over $37 million are allocated, and under this bill, 2 years from now, that number will rise to $70 million.
Do you have a sense of, and obviously you don't want to county by county, but just a general sense of how that's going to be distributed through jurisdictions versus the big five versus rural counties?
Initially, it will be done consistent in the way that in the same proportions that they've been getting it. So obviously they will get more money because the dollar value is going up. And then afterwards, there's a formula in the bill that is dependent on inflation, population, and other factors.
Was there any opposition to the bill?
There was none. This is actually a MACO priority bill, and they're very supportive of this, but there was no opposition.
No, I think it's a great bill. I think it's very admirable. I'm looking forward to supporting it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Senate Bill 563 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 111 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 563, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 81. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 859, Department of Housing and Community Development, appraisal gap from historic redlining financial assistance program establishment.
Is on third reading
Madam
and
Speaker.
final passage. Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you. Would the floor leader rise for a question?
Floor leader. Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Hello.
Yes. Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. So I'm just, I have great admiration to the sponsor of this bill, close friend. I'm just trying to figure out, did the fiscal note change with any of the amendment, or is it still $4 million?
No. So it's a little bit tricky to understand. We took the mandate out, and so all of the money is discretionary now. DHCD kept in the box, it has still the money, but that's because DHCD wanted to say how much it would cost if they did the program, but it is entirely discretionary. There's no mandate.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 114 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 859, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Calendar of third reading, Senate Bills number 75. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 137, Maryland Transit Administration, conversion to zero-emission buses, Zero-Emission Bus Transition Act.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 101 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 137, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 307, Labor and Employment Direct Care Workforce Innovation Program.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? The minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor leader on this.
Economic matters. Economic matters.
Hey. I'm just looking for some information on this bill. It's been amended. The original bill had a mandated appropriation. Was that taken out? Hello.
Floor leader.
Retains a mandated appropriation beginning fiscal year 23.
And what is that appropriation?
$250,000.
Oh, okay. And tell me what this bill does.
Basically, it's called the Direct Care Workforce Innovation Program, and establishes grants of up to $50,000 to any eligible entity that provides direct care services for aid and recruitment of these workers. Basically, the workers would be home health care aides, personal aides, nurses assistants, psychiatric aides, and geriatric nursing assistants.
So you get a $50,000 grant. Who's going to get the grant?
Up to.
Person or a?
Up to it.
Okay.
The eligible entities includes nonprofit organizations, labor organizations, employer of direct care workers, or entities with shared labor management oversight.
Okay. Who's going to oversee it?
It's the Division of Workforce Development and Adult Learning.
In labor or in health or?
Department of Labor.
Department of Labor. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 307, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 375, Agriculture Neonicotinoid Pesticides, Sale and Storage.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 107 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 375, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 515, Criminal Procedure, Registered Sex Offenders, Entry onto School Property.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 137 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 515, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 723, Maryland Food System Resiliency Council.
Is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 102 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 723, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 38. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendment.
House Bill 18, Landlord and Tenant Residential Tenants, Right to Counsel, Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognize the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to concur with the Senate amendments. The Senate amendment strikes the language in the bill related to a right to counsel in certain eviction cases, and it creates, as it says in the bill, access to counsel as opposed to a right to counsel. It includes language to provide for a 10-day period prior to being able to file for eviction, where the landlord has to give notice before they can file the complaint in district court. And there are, and that's the sum and substance of the Senate amendments.
Madam Speaker.
The question before the House is concurring the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The gentleman from Talbot in the annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Floor Leader, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So I got confused. We've had so many of these landlord bills, but we have the bill that's right to counsel here. Is the fee in this bill, or is that a different bill? That the fee.
There's no increase in the fee in this bill, and this bill does not have to do. It explicitly struck right to counsel, and now is access to counsel.
Can you? I mean, okay. So can you explain the difference, just so I can hear it?
A right is something that when you have it, if you didn't have counsel, you would be able to get counsel, and the proceedings would be paused or stopped while that counsel was being procured. This provides for greater access to counsel, meaning that this would, if the fee were passed, would provide more assistance to make sure that lawyers were available should people want to engage in counsel. They'd still have to qualify under the rules set by the MLSC, the Maryland Legal Services Corporation.
Okay, so I'm sure I'm going to ask all the wrong questions, and I don't want to belabor the point, but the fee, if I remember it correctly, That bill isn't before us right now. This is a different bill, because I know
This is a different bill than the fee bill, yes.
so there's a fee bill coming. I need to catch that. And I don't think I have any other questions at this point in time on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
You mentioned, thank you for the committee chair, you mentioned that Maryland Legal Services Corporation, and I believe that we had a colloquy about that previously, that would be the entity that would provide
No.
the counsel.
They would be
Who gets these lawyers?
It would be a pass-through organization. MLSE would be the pass-through, and then they would contract and they would make grants to local housing assistance providers who would then provide that counsel.
So MLSC gets the money from the funding mechanism.
That's correct.
And then they go out into individual jurisdictions, because there's some entities that may be statewide, there are others that may just be locally focused.
That's
pro bono, so to speak, attorney organizations. And those organizations actually provide the services. Who does the screening under the bill as currently constructed for whether or not you're eligible to get paid? Because that's ultimately the funding mechanism means you're going to have to be transferring money from the taxpayer to the entity, to the lawyer.
The bill as it's for MLSC, you have to qualify for their services. It's the same qualification that you have to that they have already, which I believe is 50% of the average income for the state of Maryland. So they'd have to qualify for that. I'm right? Okay. One time today. 50% of that. MLSC would set, that's what they already use, so
Threshold.
that would get passed forward to those other organizations to make sure that people were qualified.
Is there any other type of threshold or mechanism to attempt to evaluate the viability of the tenant's defense or the claim? Because that's one of the questions is, if you simply come in and say, hey, I'm below the threshold, I get a free lawyer, and then the lawyer shows up and says, well, what's your defense? Well, I don't really have one. I'm down on my luck, and I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for those folks. I don't have a funding mechanism through which to pay my rent, and after several months of this, my landlord has complied with the law, and they want to evict me, but I want a lawyer. Is there any mechanism in the bill as constructed that sort of puts a test there? It's not like criminal law, where the criminal lawyer fights to protect the constitutional rights of the defendant, even though he or she may believe that they don't really have any viable defense. In this context, the civil context, typically if you don't have a viable defense, it's against our responsibilities, it's against our ethical code to go in and attempt to continue to litigate if I really don't have anything to say. So is there anything in the bill that provides a screening mechanism from that perspective?
No, there's nothing that provides a screening mechanism necessarily with this legislation, but I'd also go a step further and again distinguish between this and a right. It's not a right to counsel, it's access to counsel. And I think that's a critical difference here, because with a right to counsel, you would be able to say, whether I have a defense or not, here I am. I would qualify under, at least as the bill was initially thought of, under very specific circumstances. So you'd have that. Under this scenario, there would be some access, and I think the break on that is going to be that there's not going to be unlimited funds for this, and so those not-for-profits are going to have to make choices as to who they decide to go forward with and who they don't.
Right, and I think that's a critical point, and I appreciate that, and that's kind of my concern, is I don't think anyone in this General Assembly wants to say that someone should get railroaded into an eviction when their landlord has not done something correct. They've either not provided a safe and livable habitable apartment or home for them to live and still try to charge them rent, or they've violated the various laws, regulations that we've put into the eviction process, and they just go ahead and get the eviction anyway because the poor tenant doesn't know any better or doesn't have any legal defense. I want to eliminate those types of situations. That's what I'm concerned about a little bit, is exactly what you just said, is without that screening mechanism, we're going to crowd out the defendants and the families that we want to get help to, because we'll be overwhelmed with people simply applying to these agencies, these pro bono organizations, even if they really don't have a viable defense, and they're simply looking to run the clock out for an extra week or an extra month or an extra 6 months sometimes. So I appreciate your perspective that the agencies will have to do that on their own. My hope is that perhaps the committees in the future will work towards tightening that eligibility criterion if we're going to go forward with these programs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The gentleman from Queen Anne's and the Annex.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The floor leader, please, would you rise for a question?
Sure.
Please. I just, as I look at something like this, I always wonder what's in it for the landlord. And I look at this, what if I'm a poor landlord and I don't have access to an attorney? What is my recourse under a bill like this?
As a landlord, this goes to tenants. It does not go to landlords. So you wouldn't have recourse under this legislation.
Well, I just wonder, because I've listened to several bills today about landlords being villains of some kind, and I think I provide a very good service, and yet we're trying to protect people. Where I do a lease, when I lease out my properties, I have a very specific legal lease that I write through my real estate brokerage and whatever, and I come up with that, and all of a sudden, when I do this the legal way, I'm doing what's right. I'm a victim now because you're not paying your rent, you're doing something to violate that lease. And somehow now I'm sitting back saying, I somehow have to find a way to help pay for your legal representation against me as a landlord. And I just sometimes worry about these types of bills and what they're doing to the people and what they're doing to people as landlords and how I'm going to act in the future to really tighten my rules. And I think this bill will have negative effects. Am I right?
I don't think that this bill will have negative effects at all. I think that it will make legal representation more available to the people who need it the most, the people who are at the lower end of the income ladder, who are most vulnerable, and who need that assistance. It won't, based on the estimates of what might potentially be available here, depending on what the fee would be. I don't believe that they're certainly not going to be able to cover everyone who has difficulty or is being evicted, but at least they would be able to impact those people most at need.
These types of bills, though, I appreciate your answer, but these types of bills do nothing for me as somebody who is not a huge successful real estate broker or agent. I mean, it's renting out.
You don't give yourself enough credit, really.
You're exactly right. I'm really good, and I apologize for alluding that I wasn't. But I do appreciate it. But I worry about bills like this that are just going after, and we're addressing a problem. And I don't say there isn't a problem, but I do say that in a situation for many people starting out, trying to get a rental property here, a rental property there, they don't have the financial means to go out and hire a lawyer. Yet the person who's violating that lease, which that's where we're at with this, if we're having a violation of a lease, I don't think anybody's throwing somebody out just because they don't like them. So we're failing the people that are providing the jobs, providing the income, providing the property, and we're putting legislation like this in that's just not even considering it. And those types of bills really concern me as somebody trying to invest and trying to do the right thing that is providing the housing. Isn't that so?
You could be on Judiciary. Look, again, I think that the problem we're seeking to address here is that of making sure that there's counsel for people, especially at the lowest ends of the income ladder, who are the most vulnerable. And so making counsel more accessible is what we want to try and do.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that, but you know what? These people that I'm talking about are vulnerable. They have their life savings in an investment property, and we're sitting out there saying they don't matter, that the people that are renting off them have so many more rights, so many more privileges than what the people that are actually providing the service. And I mean, I imagine there's people out there doing this maliciously, and there's some malice sometimes, and they're doing it for only profit, and they could be called some other things. But the people out there struggling don't have that advantage, and I think a bill like this really represents that. I'll be voting no on this bill, but I do appreciate all your help, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I ask a question of my good chair?
Sure.
I know this just came out tonight, so I was trying to read through it briefly and quickly, and I just had a question about the MLSC. And as an attorney who has served certain cases with the MLSC, my experience with them, which may not be, in fact, the process,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. My experience with the MLSC and with entities that they work with, which may not in fact be the process that would apply here, is that they cannot be forced to provide legal counsel. In fact, they tend to pick and choose based upon their level of staff, their level of resources, and their analysis of the case, and their interaction with counsel such as myself who volunteers time to work with them. How can this bill provide a shall, which it says shall require access to counsel with MLSC, when that not necessarily appears possible?
They'll be able to provide an access to counsel as they do already, and they'll have to do it based on the resources that they have.
So when you're in court, if the landlord files this notice of eviction, files the complaint,
It says access. It doesn't say a right. It doesn't say say anything would stop.
will the judge be required, as it's written, with the shall language, to refer them to MLSC prior to taking the steps of the court action?
It's access to justice. It's not a right.
Okay, thank you.
The gentlelady from Prince George's and Anne Arundel in the annex.
Madam Speaker, I move the previous question.
Question is the previous question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Minority Whip to explain her vote.
Thank you. To explain my vote, I had some questions on this bill. Unfortunately, was not afforded the opportunity to ask them. I'm not sure how moving to 10 days out, and I believe that's what the floor leader said is going to help. I was going to ask what the main reason that property owners file in rent court, and that would be failure to pay rent. So helping people get an attorney to fight failing to pay rent is not going to help people pay the rent. I think this is an approach that's only going to result in the increase of the cost of affordable housing. And I know that's not the goal of the people that are sponsoring the bill and the people in the House of Delegates, but the unintended consequence of this and many of the other bills we have before us is going to be to increase the cost of affordable housing, because property owners will pass the cost on in rent. They don't do this for a hobby. Many of them are people who have investment properties so they can have a pension, so they can have some stream of income because they didn't work for the government and they don't have a pension plan, and they'll be forced to just pass it on to their renters.
Madam Speaker.
The Hartford, gentleman from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Very briefly to explain my vote, and again, I think this bill is well-intentioned. I think there are some opportunities to make it better, certainly, and I appreciate the committee and the sponsors' work on this bill. I think the biggest flaw with the bill as we stand right now is with HB 31, the funding mechanism still outstanding. This bill right now has no funding mechanism, so we're passing a bill that's not paid for. So that's why I'll be voting no. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. There being 94 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 18, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Conference Committee report, Senate Bill 883. The clerk will read the bill and the Conference Committee report.
Senate Bill 883, tobacco tax, out-of-state sales of premium cigars and pipe tobacco, amendment number 1.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the Conference Committee report.
So ordered.
The Conference Committee report makes this bill identical to the House version of the bill that's already passed. It compromises on what the reduction from the higher 53% excise tax rate to the 12% sales tax rate will cover under this amended version. The reduction is only for premium pipes. Move the Conference Committee report.
Motion for the House is the adopted Conference Committee report. All
Madam
in favor
Speaker.
signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Conference Committee report is adopted. Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the floor leader rise for a quick question?
Yes, sir.
So what is the tax now with the new bill? What is the new rate for?
The only
I'm more concerned
change,
about hookahs, personally.
the only change in tax rate in this bill is for premium pipes. That is, pipes made out of meerschaum, wood, and a couple of other items that do not use a screen. So it does not apply to the reduction. Does not apply to hookahs anymore.
So what is the current rate? Is it 50-some percent?
Hookahs will stay at the 53% excise tax rate. Now, just be aware, excise tax rates and sales tax rates are not perfectly comparable because, of course, items cost less when the store buys them than they do when they sell them. So it's not quite as high a rate as it sounds, but they stay the same.
So on the, you said the screen pipes. Can you give me an example? I don't know what that is.
So the fancy pipes.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not. Can you give me an example,
like a fancy tobacco pipe, like
Oh,
a
just-
meerschaum or ivory tobacco pipe?
Oh, okay. Just used to smoke what?
It's used to smoke tobacco.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senate Bill 883 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 111 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 883, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Conference Committee report, Senate Bill 65. The clerk will read the bill and the Conference Committee report.
Senate Bill 65, Electricity Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard Qualifying Biomass, Amendment Number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Conference Committee recommends the adoption of the ECM committee amendment. Essentially, what the bill, it maintains the House position entirely. That's what it does, and it corrects a date that was in the bill. So I would move the Conference Committee report.
Motion for the House is to adopt the Conference Committee report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Conference Committee report is adopted. Senate Bill 65 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 94 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 65, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation. Clerk will read report number 47. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 334, Water Pollution Control, Intervention in Civil Actions, Rights and Authority, favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the majority leader.
I move to suspend the rules to allow for 2 readings in the same day.
Question for the House is allow for 2 readings on the same day. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Just remind everybody it's 10:55. Has everyone recorded the vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? Clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes, the bill is placed on third reading. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
everyone recorded their votes? Does anyone care to change their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call. There be 96 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 334, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Report of the Committee on Economic Matters, report number 49. Clerk will read the first.
Senate Bill 460, Economic Development, Advance Clean Energy and Clean Energy Innovation Investments and Initiatives. Favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to suspend the rules to allow for 2 readings in the same day.
Question for the House is to allow the bill to have 2 readings on the same day. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 98 votes in the affirmative, the bill is placed on third reading. Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think I've got this down. I got to hop up quicker to ask some questions.
Yes, we got, what time? Go ahead, ask your question, please.
I think the floor leader's looking for his notebook. Take your time. We got all night.
No, we don't.
Madam Speaker.
I keep telling you, it's 10:58, and we got people's
Madam Speaker.
bills on the table. Yeah,
All right,
go
he's
ahead.
got the book. All right, here we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell us what this bill does as it's been amended?
The bill is needed to clarify the position of the MCEC and MEH as financing entities for the state agencies and to provide an appropriate and steady source of funding for their advanced clean energy activities from the RGGI proceeds.
So there's no tax. This is coming out of RGGI proceeds.
Correct. Yep.
And what's the fiscal note on the bill now as it's been amended?
The bill starts at an annual $2.1 million transfer from CEF to MEII and MCEC, starting in fiscal year 2022 and continuing indefinitely.
Oh, $2 million every year, escalating or just flat at that?
It's flat.
Okay, and it's coming out of RGGI, and just to remind the body, RGGI is a tax that's put on Maryland utility bills. Is that correct?
No.
Well, I mean, where does RGGI get their money?
From the auctions.
Auctions, but ultimately, if we don't meet the standards, it eventually comes out of utility
You're talking
bills.
alternative compliance payments, and that's not the same thing.
So tell us how RGGI gets their money.
We don't have time for that. It would take me quite a while to get into auctions and so forth.
But ultimately, it comes from ratepayers.
Yes.
Because RGGI doesn't print money. So that's
Correct.
my point. It comes out of utility bills because that's who ratepayers are. Okay, thank you.
The gentleman from Frederick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Real quick question for the floor leader, if I may.
Yes.
So does this bill provide for the opportunity to define and potentially utilize new nuclear power, the most clean energy that exists?
No, it has nothing to do with that.
I saw solar. I saw a list of many different other power definitions. I didn't see that. And then as to the Maryland Clean Energy Center that's listed, it says it's now going to be designated as a green bank and will work in conjunction with other local and private green banks. Could you explain that to me? What does that mean?
They're just doing projects. they're doing clean energy projects. They've been doing great work, quite frankly. But year after year, we've been having issues between them and the MEA, quite frankly, about how they're going to get funded and so forth. So this puts in a permanent funding source for them to continue their work. That's all.
Not an actual bank, then?
No, not an actual bank.
Thank you.
I forgot where we were. Question before the House. Did you ask? Okay. Senate Bill 460 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change your vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 97 votes in the affirmative, the bill is placed on third reading. Do we already do the third reading one?
Pass.
Pass the third reading. Clerk, read next bill. It's declared pass. Clerk, read next bill.
Senate Bill 610, Lodging Establishments, Accessible Homes for Individuals with Disabilities, deadlines favorable.
Question for the House. It's the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 677, Allegheny County Alcoholic Beverages Class B, D, Beer, Wine, and Liquor License favorable.
Question for the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered past the third reading. Minority Leader.
I move to suspend the rules to allow for 2 readings in the same day.
Question for the House is allow the bill to have 2 readings on the same day. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 118 votes in the affirmative, the bill is placed on third reading. Is there any further debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 134 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 677, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
Senate Bill 911, Unlawful Employment Practice, Statute of Limitations and Remedies. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 restores the current law regarding damage caps. Please move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments have been adopted. Question now is adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can you tell us what this bill does, please, as it's amended?
As amended, this bill extends the statute of limitations from 2 years to 3 years, and includes that as well as 2 years to 3 years for the amount of back pay that can be awarded in the case of unlawful employment practices and for unlawful employment practices. It was 2, and now it's up to 3.
So an employee can file against an employer and get 3 years of back pay. Is that what you're saying? It was 2 years and now it's 3 years?
It's potentially, depending on how long the violation was going, it just extends it an additional year. Obviously, they would have to have been working there for 3 years, and the violation would have to have occurred for 3 years, but it makes it up to 3 years what they can get instead of 2 years, which is now.
So the fiscal note looks pretty large. Is that, it says Impact on small business potentially meaningful? Is that what this is saying?
Well, that's the reason. It's potentially because, again, this would have to do with the state getting caught in any of those suits. But also, the original bill had increased the damage caps substantially, and we struck that from the bill.
Oh, okay. So you moved it partially the right direction. Did the chamber weigh in?
I'm sorry?
Did the Chamber of Commerce weigh in?
Written opposition.
They were opposed. Anybody else opposed?
Nope, that's it.
But the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm assuming the Chamber is not in favor, even with these amendments?
We can assume that's true.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Young lady from Carroll.
Thank you. I think you're moving in the right direction by taking off the, putting back the caps, but right now we align with federal law. Why do we need to unalign ourselves with federal law? I mean, right now the 2 years is federal law, and we align with that current law, and you've moved it to 3 years. So what is the rationale for needing the extra year?
Because all of our other state discrimination statutes are 3 years, so we're just aligning ourselves with our own state statutes.
So how would this differ from being able to file under the state civil rights?
I'm sorry?
How would this law give somebody the ability to sue under this versus under the civil rights law?
This is the state civil rights law when it comes to...
This is?
Yes, for violation of this is for violation of civil rights, and it comes to employment as well.
The reason I'm asking, because we've had bills like this even in our committee, we try to align with federal law, and we're basically moving away from that and adding an extra year. I just didn't know what the reasoning for that was.
Well, the Commission on Civil Rights is in support of this bill as well.
Well, I'm sure they are, because basically in the testimony from the chamber, it said that there was a fine balance that was reached with federal law between the caps and the amount of time that a complainant could file a civil action, and this I guess violates that. So there's no good reason except you want to align with a different law. There's no real valid reason of a case or something like that.
It's also for violations of civil rights, giving individual, the workers, additional opportunities to file these suits, again, increasing the statute of limitations, giving that extra year, because a lot of times individuals don't know they've been cheated. They don't know they've been discriminated against, and they find out at some later date. What this does is give our workers just that much more time to file suit. And again, as I said, because it's backwards looking, up to 3 years. Again, it's up to 3 years if that violation has been going on for up to 3 years.
And do you have any kind of indication how many people that would have affected? I mean, is there any anecdotal information that people didn't file in the right amount of time and they would have filed in this third year?
Well, no anecdotal information was provided. This is just, again, to align ourselves with our other state statutes, as well as, like I said, just give them more
Thank you.
time.
I mean, I always say, why do we need a bill? And I still haven't been convinced that there's any reason we need it, except we're going to align with something else other than federal law, which most other states use. So I don't really give me a good reason to say what's the problem we're trying to solve, but thank you anyway.
Chair of the committee.
I'd like to move the special order this bill until 11:45 p.m.
Question for the House of Special Order SB 911 until 11:45 this evening. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The bill has been special ordered. Special order calendar, SB 927. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 927, Institutions of Higher Education, Prohibition Against Incentive Payments, Foreign Student Exemption.
The maker of the special order. The maker of the special
My
order.
questions have been answered.
Senate Bill 927 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? Not, the clerk will take the call.
Which one again?
There being 100 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 927, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Concurrence calendar number 33. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 130, Commission on LGBTQ Affairs established. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment removes a requirement for the Commission to work with local governments on legislation and replaces it with specific responsibilities. It also provides that a member who misses more than half of the Commission meetings in a 12-month period shall be considered to have resigned from the committee. Move the concurrence.
The question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 130 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 107 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 130, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 299, State Board of Physicians, Genetic Counselors Licensing. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendments put this bill in the posture that we passed the Senate bill out of the House. Move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 299 is on third reading and final passage. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 299, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 660, Maryland Veteran Service Animal Program, definitions, favorable. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment conforms the bill to the Senate cross-file as it passed the House. Move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 660 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 136 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 660, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read next bill.
House Bill 758, Maryland Licensure of Certified Midwives Act. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment conforms the bill to the Senate bill that passed the House. Move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 758 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 129 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 758, having received the constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read next bill.
House Bill 1039, Health Occupation State Board of Massage Therapy Examiners, revisions, amendment number 1.
Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment conforms the bill to the Senate cross-file as passed the House. Move to concur.
Question for the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1039 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 138 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1039, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Yea and nay. Consent calendar 17. House bills passed in the Senate. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 73.
Recognizing Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of House Bill 73 be considered the reading of all the bills on the calendar.
So ordered. Can the chairs please come forward? Report of the Committee on Ways and Means, report number 42. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 785, State Board of Education Membership and Terms, Capability and Capacity Study of Education Agencies. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker.
Let him go.
Vice Chair in the annex of.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move so much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 alters language used for State Board of Education membership. Requires that the State Board meet 12 times per year rather than 4. Requires the State Board President to set agenda for meetings. Replaces the State Superintendent as the State Board Secretary with the Secretary elected from the Board's membership. And gives the State Board sole authority to set the state board executive director's appointment terms beginning at the next vacancy. Move the amendments.
Question for the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Amendments have been adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill to its title? Hearing none. Bill is
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker. Oh.
Let him go ahead.
we're
I have a question.
Thank you.
Vice
Madam Speaker.
Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the special orders bill until 11:46 p.m. today.
Resist. Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was planning to move to suspend the rules for 2 readings in the same day.
I don't care what we're doing. I just want to ask.
We got 2 motions up here. We got to have.
Resisting the special order.
Madam Speaker.
Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pressing my motion.
President, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Roll call.
It's not, gentlemen, it's not supported.
Roll call.
Bill is ordered past the 3rd reading. It's too late. Recognizing the Chair of the Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd ask the House Judiciary Committee to please come to the Old House Chamber right now.
House Judiciary members, please leave to go to the Old House chambers. Okay. Quorum called before adjournment.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. 127 members present, not including those who went out the door. The House is still in session.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand adjourned until 11:29 p.m.